Coverup, your host on Change Your Voice, Change Your Life. In studio with me is my guest, Dr. John Curtis, who thinks I have a good sense of humor and laugh at a lot of things, and I do, because it's the saving grace. Lord Byron said, "And if I laugh, 'tis that I may not weep." We're going to talk about a condition that's the strangled voice and other attributes, because a lot of people have problems with their voices and they don't know where to go. Subtitled, what is the title? Subtitle?
This title is Conspiracy, not Theory, but Reality.
Question mark.
Well, you're putting a question mark on it, that you asked to do that, but there's no question mark needed. There is a conspiracy, and you've been the target of the conspiracy. Mm-hmm. You've been victimized by a publicly traded drug company that makes Botox, mm-hmm. and has really monopolized your field mm-hmm. of treating spasmodic dysphonia for like over 20 years right now. Mm-hmm. And they view you as a fly in the ointment. Mm-hmm. You're a nuisance to them.
Well, I know that, but I'm a nuisance to a lot of people.
But they're now trying to get rid of you. They're putting you in solitary confinement.
Dr. Curtis, we are all, in a sense, in solitary confinement. There are lobbyists around telling us what to think, what to say, what to do, and they come from Congress, they go from a position of power to a position of income, and this goes on and on. The New York Times talks about it, how the senators and congressmen go from the U.S. Federal payroll to lobbying.
Well, they go from an elected office,
right,
and a big salary in the Senate, mm-hmm. to a mega salary in a private lobbying firm in Washington.
I don't understand why the New York Times is so negative about that.
Well, they're talking about Trent Lott, but that's not the reason Lott left the Senate.
No, aside from Trent Lott. What's so...
Lott left the Senate because they threw him under the bus.
This is a country built on earning a buck.
Look,
and Allergan, the maker of Botox, is trying to earn a buck.
Look, your
Are you
national
opposed?
Organization, mm-hmm. okay, this is a group that's, a 501c3. They're committed to advancing the science and the art mm-hmm. of speech pathology and mm-hmm. audiology and so forth. And they've thrown you under the bus and run you over as many times as they can.
Dr. Curtis,
somehow you don't die. What's wrong with that? They're angry about that. You keep coming back.
There are many stories people have undergone them. A guy by the name of Ignaz Semmelweis in 1845 was a young guy in Vienna, and he told the medical people, he was an MD, in childbirthing and so forth, they had 20 to 36% fatalities at that time. It was safer to have a child on the street than in these top medical centers in 1845. And he said, "Doctor, wash your hands." And because he told them to wash their hands, he lost his career, he lost his income, he lost everything. And according to one of the top guys in the Lancet, Richard Horton.
You want to tell people what Lancet is? That's a leading British medical journal.
Yeah, medical journal.
British.
Yeah, and Richard Horton, as in public, it is written about it, that the establishment killed him, literally killed this guy. And it was only after a period of many, many years that Ignaz Semmelweis was proven correct. Now, countless millions of women and babies died. So what is new? Because the doctors did not want to change their modus operandi. How many millions? Who knows? Was it hundreds of thousands?
Where do you see the parallel?
The parallel is very simple. If somebody comes along, such as myself,
okay,
and reports cures of a hopeless voice condition called spasmodic dysphonia.
Well, what do you do differently than a medical doctor?
Well, I change the pitch of voice, and I change the voice itself from the lower throat, where all strangled voices are.
Do you operate on patients?
No.
Do you inject them with anything?
No.
So is your treatment non-medical?
Non-medical. All natural.
So you have a non-medical treatment that gets better results than the prevailing state-of-the-art medical treatment?
Not only better results, cures. Cures. I am curing a hopeless condition by all natural direct voice rehabilitation. It's not speech therapy. Speech therapy has never reported a single cure anywhere that I know of. And all the medical sites, if you look them up, everywhere you look, guarantee there are no cures. Guarantee. I'm the only doctor in the world reporting ongoing cures for 35 years. Reporting, just reporting, not guaranteeing. My field, the American Speech and Hearing Language
Haven't you broken the
Association,
rules of your profession?
in a way that outrages the establishment in my field, yes. They guarantee in writing that there are no cures. The medical profession guarantees in writing there are no cures. The NSDA, which National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association, which is funded by Allergan, the maker of Botox, guarantees there are no cures. So I'm the odd person out, the only doctor in the world most controversial, reporting cures. Now, to me, it's very sad, tragic, but very cartoonish, because all I'm doing is changing the voice from the lower throat to the face.
Yeah, you're changing the pitch of the voice.
The medical profession says you can't do that. The condition, Dr. Cooper, is a dystonia. It's a neurological problem. It's a basal ganglia problem in the brain. It's a chemical balance in the brain. We can't find it. It's a gene-related problem. It's a disease. They have it's molecular biological cause. They have various theories, but they have never reported, which is very entertaining, one single cure ever since the condition was first diagnosed in 1871 by Ludwig Traub.
Now, their argument is that we don't have cures, we have 99% effective treatments.
That's what the old story was. But that story has fallen apart because it's very nice to promise, but unfortunately, even the New York Times has made the position very clear as to how lobbyists can work, and lobbyists do work behind the scenes. On the front page of the New York Times, March 2nd, 2003, Sunday edition, the New York Times said Botox, quote, Botox is giving those with spastic vocal cords back their voices, end quote. There's no documentation for it, no sourcing, and this is the leading
Do you believe that's a factual statement?
No, absolutely not.
Did you ever ask the New York Times why they would report on something that's non-factual?
Yes. I had exchanges with the Sulzbergers, the editors, executive editors of the New York Times, and David Corcoran, who's the assistant editor of Science Times, which loves medical people. They just love medical people. PhDs are out of the ballgame. Said, as far as I can tell, the statement is accurate. And I wrote back to Mr. Corcoran, sent my response to the Sulzberger Senior and Junior, the executive director, Bill Keller, and others, telling them, as far as I can tell, regarding what Mr. Corcoran can tell, is he doesn't know what he's talking about, basically. He's never seen these patients, and I have seen them over the years. I've read their emails, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of their emails. I've seen their letters. I've taken their calls with their permission and documented what I'm saying, that the outcome of Botox for SD is not in the ballpark of 99% effective. Nowhere, no how.
Well, when they say effective...
no, they're referring to the voice.
What do they mean by effective?
The voice.
So they're saying that it restores a
normal voice,
a pre-existing medically plagued voice. Spasmodic dysphonia, a strangled voice. They're returning it after injecting with Botox to a normal, clear voice.
Right,
and they say it does that 99% of the time.
Right,
and you think that's
factual?
The
word bruited on the street, and the patients telling me. Do I?
You believe that's a factual statement?
No, absolutely not.
Is that your clinical experience, that it's 99% effective?
Absolutely not. But what I'm saying is I have the emails, I have the letters, I have the telephone calls. There's something wrong going on here.
There is a disconnect, isn't there?
Yeah. Now, you can take it seriously, take it to heart, and become very troubled. I do want to go to another point, which I think is hilarious, and forgive me if I seem untaken by what goes on in society. It's cartoonish. In 1345, the Black Plague killed, I believe it is 25 million people in Western Europe. 1345. Why talk about that? The French king called his 3 leading physicians to him and asked them what is the cause of the Black Plague. Now, that's only 25 million in Western Europe. The rest of the world was devastated. And they asked to retire and consult, and he said, of course. They came back, Dr. Curtis, do you know what they told the French king in 1345?
No, what did they tell him?
My liege, the stars are coming together in the heavens is the cause of the Black Plague. Now, millions and millions and millions and millions of people died. In 1899, in the Louis Pasteur Institute. Louis Pasteur was a PhD. Two of the physicians at that Louis Pasteur Institute found out the answer. It was only 550 years later that the rats were creating the disease. Now, sometimes the medical community is a little slow on the take, but thank God, after 550 years, the answer was there. Now, this is not just happening in the Black Plague with the medics or with spasmodic dysphonia. Spasmodic dysphonia is not cured by the medical community because they're on the wrong road, Dr. Curtis. And they don't want to discuss cures because cures present them with egg on their face and a disinclination on their part to confront reality.
Well, why is a cure of a condition that you discovered, a cure, a non-medical cure, considered a dirty word?
In the medical community, they're doing 4 to 10 Botox shots a year, anywhere between $1,000 to $4,000. Takes maybe 5 seconds or a minute or two, whatever it takes. And it's a lifetime annuity and a full-time employment. Why wouldn't the medical community support the medics? I don't understand why you would be so unkind to not understand that.
Well, here's the part of it, I think, that that people don't really get is that, okay, so that the person who is working for the drug company has suggested that you outed his personal medical information. He's complained in a public forum.
Yes.
It's called a chat room.
Yes.
And he said publicly that you outed his medical information.
Is that also said?
Now, don't you find that odd? Because the medical information that you knew about this gentleman, whose name is David Barton, by the way, and he is either an employee, which we don't really know, do we?
No.
Who writes the paycheck for him? It's either the National Spasmodic Dysphonia Association, or
which funds this association,
or it's
basically.
the group that funds it, which is the maker of Botox. Now, don't you find it amusing that the person who represents the drug maker is concerned about you and the treatment that you're providing, a non-medical, non-toxic treatment?
And not only is he concerned about the drug company, which he is representing, it's funded by Allergan, but the humor of this whole thing is the American Speech Hearing Language Association, which I'm a member of for years and years in good standing, maintains they guarantee there are no cures, as does the NSDA, National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association, as does Allergan. They guarantee there are no cures.
Well, why have they told you recently in correspondence that they have no official position on spasmodic dysphonia?
Dr. Curtis, you're the co-author of the book, Curing Hopeless Voices, an alternative basically to Botox. They maintain, if you ask that question again?
We want to find out why it is that the drug maker, Allergan, is committed to keeping you out of the field, basically. I mean,
they sell Botox.
So why can't two people exist? Why can't they have their people that choose Botox? Isn't choice an option for patients?
Not in my field, not in the American Speech and Hearing Association. They do not allow choice. That, I think, is where they're reprehensible. They know I report cures. I've reported cures of spasmodic dysphonia over a period of years. In 1970, I think it's in 1970, 1974, 1979, 1980, in the year 2000, as recently as that. But they are officially tied to the NSDA. On pages 111 to 117, we document the fact that the NSDA is the sole source of the official Spasmodic Dysphonic Association, or official spasmodic dysphonia position.
You're the Asher position, that you believe that the NSDA has influenced the American Hearing and Speech Association.
They are the only source I document in the book.
But why did they
influenced
deny
them in 1994 And they refer to the NSDA, and they refer to the Dystonia Medical Group, also funded by Allergan.
But why would the National Association, when you've inquired, deny that they have an official position on spasmodic dysphonia?
They have egg on their face. It doesn't look too good when I am tying up and documenting the fact that the NSDA is the sole source of the official position that ASHA has taken on its website, saying there are no cures of spasmodic dysphonia and Botox is a treatment of choice. It is a very interesting relationship. You're talking about a conspiracy reality. I use a question mark after it. They deny that.
Don't you think it's odd that the American Speech and Hearing Association
would say that Language Hearing Association
would not admit to having an official position, and yet the National Spasmodic Dysphonia Association says they have no position.
Yes,
and
they both maintain that.
They say that they do not favor one treatment over another. Is that your experience?
It's poppycock. They do. It's obvious in my experience. As far as I can tell, let me use the expression David Corcoran of the New York Times, the assistant editor of that section, said in regard to my inquiry about the quote on the front page, March 2nd, the year 2003, Sunday edition, New York Times, Botox is giving those with spastic vocal cords back their voices. He forgot to include the fact it's the Botox voice which you described, and it's a roller coaster ride. The issue is that we're facing a situation where there's a lot of lobbying going on, and there's a lot of misinformation that I'm finding that is laughable as to what's going on. That the American Speech Hearing Language Association is denying the possibility of a cure, which I've been reporting for years, and that they're denying that there are no cures when I'm reporting cures over the years is laughable to the extent that the American Speech Language Hearing Association, I believe, has mud on its face, and it's one of the premier organizations, if not the premier organizations, in speech communication and language communication and voice communication, and it's, in my experience, dominated by the National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association, which is funded by Allergan.
Well, it's interesting that
I don't see a conspiracy in reality. I see a cover-up.
You reported cures in a book called Curing Hopeless Voices.
Right, called Spasmodic Dysphonia.
And after you reported cures in that book, they've raised ethical concerns about reporting cures. Why is...
No, they haven't. They haven't raised it. They stay away from the issue of cures. They want to affect my career and my life on a different basis, that I do not represent the position that they may have. But they don't approach it on the basis of cures. They don't want to talk about cures. We know that.
But isn't the cures of spasmodic dysphonia the crux of why there's a difference between you and your national association?
It's not only that.
You differ with them
on
whether the existence of cures.
Yes, I'm the only doctor in the world reporting cures.
But you believe that there are cures. You've seen them
I not only believe it, I have peer reviewed
you have experience.
Yes, there's no question about it. I documented this ongoing and so forth.
Even if somebody asks you to recant, you can't recant personally because you've seen them and witnessed them firsthand.
Yes, we have documented.
It would be intellectually dishonest. Would you admit that?
Yes.
If you were to recant on cures, because you've seen them firsthand. You've even had patients who were in fact cured by you on this very show demonstrating.
I've had them on national shows. I've had them on the Maury show, on the Sally show.
What about Fox News?
I've been on Fox News with the same thing. But the interesting attribute is that it fascinates me. It's a Semmelweis story, how they deny reality, and then after a period of many years, they turn around and say Semmelweis was right. What about the Black Plague in 1345? It took 550 years. What about the other situations where Galileo I believe in the 16th century.
Well, he was placed under house arrest
For the last 8 years
and wasn't
of his
he
life.
showed the instruments of torture?
Yes, and he recounted. He said that the earth revolves about the sun. Now, it took the Pope 350 years to recant himself on the front page of the New York Times in 1992. So, if you don't have a sense of humor about all of this, there was a fellow who lived and died. I believed he was in the Netherlands or Denmark, one of those countries, who wrote a journal. He worked in the church as an administrator, who said the earth revolves about the sun. He never published. And some fellow came along by the name of Mueller, I think his name is, and he went public on it. They burned him at the stake. Galileo was shown the instruments of torture, and he recanted immediately, a bright man. It is alleged on his last breath he said, "The earth revolves about the sun." Now, my answer to all of that is that there are cures of spasmodic dysphonia. Spasmodic dysphonia is not a neurological problem. It's not a disease. It's not a medical problem. It never has been. They've never had a single cure in over 135 years. That's the cartoonish aspect. And they have all these theories in their white jackets, and they're going the same route that they went in 1345 in the Galileo era with Resolin, with prefrontal lobotomies, which was honored by the medical community for 35 years and ended in disgrace. The 2 guys involved got a Nobel Prize. So how could I take myself seriously, Dr. Curtis, and stand on the street corner and yell, "You are all wrong. There are cures of spasmodic dysphonia," where there are, documented. They're on a DVD, 2 hours. You can get them on my website if you get tuned in. And the interesting attribute is there a conspiracy, a reality conspiracy? You judge for yourself what's going on.
Well, the difference between a conspiracy theory and a reality is something you've lived through.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you've witnessed concerns that they've had. I mean, that your respected association, National Association, has taken a position against cures.
Yeah, they have a dead-end tunnel. In 1991, I'm sorry to interrupt you, a leading ear, nose, and throat doctor at the Pacific Voice Conference answered an individual, "I am talking like this, there's about 500 people there." And this good ear, nose, and throat doctor said this when the poor individual with the strangled voice asked, "Is there any light at the end of the tunnel?" She was very kind to say, "There's no light at the end of the tunnel. I'm just saying, I believe they're wrong. They're on the wrong road. They've been on the wrong road for 135 years in the medical profession. In my field, they've been on the wrong road for years and years, too. And they're all entitled to their position. It comes down to one point, just one point. Doctor, can't you give choice to those who suffer the strangled voice, who have a high suicide rate? Can't you give choice if you had your family or you yourself, and I have had medics who come to me because of spasmodic dysphonia and are cured by what I do. If you had no choice, what would you do?" And they look for choice. They go for a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion. And in this case, they don't give choice, and they know about the cures. Because I sent 14,300 letters out to the entire medical profession, telling them there are cures and documenting it. So what is your comment, Dr. Curtis? I should be serious? I shouldn't take them in a cartoonish way?
Well, I think it's becoming abundantly clear to at least somebody who's watching the show or that you're not going to roll over. I mean, there will be a time when they carry you out feet first.
Still laughing.
Still
laughing.
Still laughing and cackling.
Mm-hmm.
But until that time comes, you're not going to recant.
No, they've sent an emissary to
But they have, in effect, shown you the instrument of torture, because I know that there was one woman who worked for Allergan who told you that if you would recant, that they would refer to you.
Yes. I told her, "I'm sorry, I can't recant. I have peer review, and there are cures." And I'm sorry to tell the young lady who is with the NSDA, National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association. There are cures, and that's the end of the matter. Thank you for coming in. So they've tried all ways and all means. And what would you like to summarize? The title of the program is?
Well, it's Conspiracy Reality.
Well, is it a conspiracy?
Well,
it looks more and more like it. I call it a cover-up.
I think that to the extent that the person who files ethical charges is working for the drug maker, it certainly would suggest that there's a reality to the conspiracy. So,
well, I think they're all well-intentioned, Dr. Curtis. You have little faith in people. They have their views, and their views are based on their careers, their income, their paradigms, their ego, and so forth. And I wish them all well, but I'm sorry to say they don't give choice to those who suffer the condition when there is choice and there are cures, and there's no question about it, and they don't want to discuss cures because it's not the issue of the day, and it makes them to be inappropriate in what they're doing, regardless of the fact they're wearing white jackets, which I respect, but not in this case. You want to end the program, Dr. Kurt?
Well, I think that that people have had a good chance to hear on both sides of this issue, and I think the bottom line is that you're offering somebody an option to a standard medical treatment, either a surgery or an injection. If they want to see a voice improve, that you can
possibly cured.
Possibly cured. You can, and you do not guarantee cures, do you?
I report cures.
But have you ever guaranteed cures?
No, I never guarantee anything. But the medical profession guarantees there are no cures. My field guarantees it. I want to thank you all for joining with me. You decide what your position is on this issue. And now we have the Christmas Carol because it's entertainment time, and it's a lovely song. Thank you for joining us.